WESH 2 News starts now with breaking news.
That breaking news this afternoon, the notorious Malibu rapist has agreed to a plea deal to end his case involving 7 women and girls who were attacked decades ago. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Nancy Alvarez.
And I'm Sheldon Dutez. WESH 2 was the only news crew in court this morning when George Gertman faced a judge. WESH 2 investigative reporter Greg Fox has been uncovering the details in this case and joins us now in the studio. And Greg, this will now avoid trial.
Well, that's right. Since Gertman was charged in 2021 in connection with more than a dozen rapes in the 80s and 90s in Orange County, the case has been stalled for a variety of reasons, mostly his health. Gertman was brought into an Orange County courtroom this morning in a wheelchair. He's been receiving cancer treatment for more than a year, causing trial delays. He's previously been sentenced in 6 local rapes and is serving 2 life sentences in prison. He was charged 3 years ago in the attacks on 7 women and girls after one of his victims from 1988, Gail Gardner, insisted that the DNA from her case be re-examined, and it led to her case and the others bringing Gertman back to court to seek justice.
It's about so many other people would like to know in their minds, including myself, that we've done all we know to do to get what we need to be free of this, I guess you could say this mental and emotional state.
Gertman was dubbed the Malibu rapist following attacks that happened in and near the Malibu Shores and Washington Shores neighborhoods more than 3 decades ago. He's set for sentencing next week, and Gail Gardner plans to be in court to personally look him in the eye and deliver her victim impact statement. Gertman is expected to be sentenced for sexual battery for time served and will return to prison to serve his life sentences. Nancy?
Now to a story you'll see only on WESH 2. The notorious Malibu rapist, a man who terrorized women and girls in Orlando's Malibu Groves neighborhood during the 80s and 90s, has agreed to a plea deal. WESH 2's Greg Fox was the only reporter in court today as George Gertman faced a judge.
He looked frail, broken, not like the terrifying vision in his victims' minds of the notorious monster who preyed on women and girls in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Malibu rapist George Gertman was supposed to face trial next month, but a year's worth of cancer treatment may have taken the fight out of the serial rapist already convicted 6 times.
The state and defense have come to a resolution.
Gertman will plead guilty next week to 1 count of sexual battery with a deadly weapon and will likely be sentenced to time running concurrently with the 2 life sentences he is serving on prior convictions. It will end a case involving 7 rape survivors. Gertman earned his nickname for attacks that took place mostly in and near Orlando's Malibu Groves and Malibu Shores neighborhoods. For the women who were victimized decades ago by the Malibu rapist, this plea arrangement closes the ugliest chapters in their lives. And for one woman in particular, this is justice.
I was praying for it because I really didn't want to sit through a trial. I didn't know how long that was going to be.
Gail Gardner was mostly responsible for the cold cases being solved. She demanded that her 1988 attack be re-examined with the evidence undergoing new DNA testing. In 2021, 15 cases got a hit on Gertman's DNA, ultimately paving the road to closure for her more than 3 decades after she was attacked.
It's about so many other people would like to know in their minds, including myself, that we've done all we know to do to get what we need to be free of this, I guess you could say this mental and emotional state.
Gardner's attorney is former Orange Osceola State Attorney Aramis Ayala.
I don't think there's ever a victory for a crime victim, especially a victim of this nature. The magnitude of what occurred to her in a time span that she waited, I don't think there will ever be enough. But at least we can begin the healing process with this degree of closure.
Gardner will personally deliver her victim impact statement before Gertman is sentenced, staring him in the eyes and showing him the face of a strong survivor. In Orange County, Greg Fox, WESH 2 News.
Gardner's story helped inspire the passage of Gail's Law, which now mandates that survivors of sexual assault can track their evidence kits from law enforcement to labs to court. Examination of those kits must also occur within 120 days.
All right, breaking right now in Orange County, the Malibu rapist back in court for his fate. This is video of George Gertman last week. He is already serving 2 life sentences, and last week he took a plea deal to end the remaining cases against him.
Now, WESH 2 News investigative reporter Greg Fox explains how Gertman was brought to justice and why it's leading to even more arrests.
Convicted serial rapist George Gertman has accepted a plea agreement that will continue to keep him behind bars for the rest of his life. Already serving 2 life sentences for raping 2 women and convicted in 4 other rapes dating back to the 70s. He's now pleading guilty to 1 count of sexual battery with a deadly weapon to avoid trial in the alleged attacks on 7 women in the 80s and 90s. Targeting women and girls in and near Orlando's Malibu Grove neighborhood, Gertman earned the nickname the Malibu Rapist. A WESH 2 Investigates review of court records reveals Gertman snuck into homes, usually between 2 and 5 in the morning. He'd put a knife or some other sharp object to the female's throat, and the ones that struggled were cut on their hands, necks, and shoulders. Detectives say Gertman would stalk his victims for weeks or months. He would look for toys in the front yards of homes, trying to find single moms, figuring that when he attacked them, they wouldn't scream for fear of waking up their children.
Not knowing where the case is, not knowing whatever happened was really a nightmare for me.
Gail Gardner is responsible for bringing the Malibu rapist to justice. She was attacked in her Washington Shores home in 1988 and provided a sexual assault kit. But it mysteriously disappeared. WESH 2 Investigates revealed in 2015 that more than 1,000 kits were collecting dust in local police evidence lockers. In 2019, she insisted Orlando police find and test that evidence kit. In June 2021, a DNA match to the Malibu rapist led to his rearrest in Gail's case and other unsolved cases.
The system is working, and I like to think that this case kind of got that to rolling to say, okay, let's do something now, because everybody's eye is on us.
Following a series of WESH 2 Investigates reports on missing or untested evidence in cold cases, a month after Gertman's arrest, police captured suspected Woodline rapist Dwight Harris. He now faces trial in 2 attacks from 2 decades ago. OPD then changed its policy to retain sex assault evidence for 50 years.
I'll be honest with you, I'm going to give credit to Greg Fox. He's the one who was probing to see what happened with 2 particular cases that came to the attention of the media, and it allowed us to go back and sit down and talk about our cases.
It's a policy change that's helping detectives catch the most dangerous among us. In Orlando, Greg Fox, WESH 2 News.
More breaking news. The Malibu rapist who terrorized women and girls in Orange County decades ago has been convicted again.
In a hearing that just wrapped up in court, the victim faced George Gertman for the first time since she was attacked 36 years ago.
WESH News investigative reporter Greg Fox is live at the courthouse in downtown Orlando. Greg, this was all part of a plea deal.
And I also want to thank them.
That's exactly right. George Gertman will go back to continue serving his 2 life sentences. He wanted to avoid trial, obviously, because of his health problems. And right now, out in front of the state attorney's office, the office of Andrew Bain, you can see a very courageous woman, Gail Gardner, talking about this case. Now, let's show you video inside the courthouse just a short while ago. Gertman has been in failing health while serving 2 life sentences for rapes in the early 90s. He's been undergoing cancer treatment, and police in Orange County suspected him in as many as 100 rapes dating back to the 70s, and since then had been sentenced in a total of 6 attacks. Gail Gardner was responsible for Gertman's rearrest in 2021, having insisted that her unsolved cold case be reopened. DNA testing proved Gertman was the man who broke into her home and attacked her. She delivered an emotional victim impact statement in court.
I've been in a battle as well over the last 35 years. Yet I have survived and will continue to prosper.
Gertman was nicknamed the Malibu Rapist because of attacks in and near Orlando's Malibu Groves neighborhood. Because of her efforts in the solved cold cases, Gardner's name is on Gale's Law, which established a tracking system that allows sexual assault victims to track their evidence kits from law enforcement to crime labs to court and ensures those kits are processed quickly. I want to bring you out here now again as we see Gail Gardner speaking in front of the state attorney's office here on the steps of the courthouse, thanking the many people that encouraged her to pursue her case, and she has done that over the last 3.5 years since the rearrest of the Malibu rapist, George Gertman, who is heading back to prison. Live in Orlando, Greg Fox, WESH 2 News.
Convicted serial rapist George Gertman has accepted a plea agreement that will continue to keep him behind bars for the rest of his life.
WESH 2 investigative reporter Greg Fox joins us now. He covered this case back in the 80s when the case first started. And Greg, you were in court today, and give us those chance at victims to finally get some closure.
It does for them. Remember, there were 7 women who were victims going into the case here in the courthouse when Gertman was rearrested back in 2021. Only one case was settled today. The other 6 victims indicated that they could continue their cases, but they told the state attorney basically, we're done with it. As long as he's going back to prison, we're okay with it. So let's take you inside the Orange County Courthouse from earlier this afternoon, where George Gertman was entering a plea of guilty to 1 count of sexual battery with a deadly weapon. He had been charged with 18 felony counts of raping 7 women in the 80s and 90s. Already serving 2 life sentences, Gertman was rearrested in 2021 after a courageous woman, Gail Gardner, insisted that her cold case be reopened and her evidence retested with DNA. It matched Gertman, leading to today's plea that will keep him in prison. Afterward, the state attorney thanked Gail for her determination, and she told me this was a small step toward justice and an emotional relief after years of living in fear.
Kind of closed the door in a sense, but I needed closure to the place where I was sure. And I didn't have to worry about who's behind me or looking on my shoulder.
Gertman was nicknamed the Malibu Rapist because of attacks in and near Orlando's Malibu Grove neighborhood. He was suspected in roughly 100 attacks. Because of her efforts in the solved cold cases, Gardner's name is on Gale's Law, which established a tracking system that allows sexual assault victims in Florida to track their evidence kits from law enforcement to crime labs to court and ensures those kits are processed quickly. Most recently, George Gertman has been in the Orange County Jail, but he will be taken back to state prison to live out his natural life. Live at the courthouse in Orange County, Greg Fox, WESH 2 News.
I needed closure to the place where I was sure. And I didn't have to worry about who's behind me or looking on my shoulder.
That closure came today, 35 years after the so-called Malibu rapist attacked her. Convicted serial rapist George Gertman took a plea deal that will keep him in prison for the rest of his life.
WESH 2 investigative reporter Greg Fox has covered this case since those first attacks in the Malibu neighborhood back in the late 80s. He heard from prosecutors and the victim whose testimony made the case.
A strong and confident Gail Gardner walked into court and would later tell me she felt sad for the man who held a knife to her throat and raped her 3.5 decades ago. George Gertman's arrival in court was delayed as he battled cancer.
I've been in a battle as well over the last 35 years. Yet I have survived and will continue to prosper.
Her victim impact statement sealed the case against the Malibu rapist, with Gertman pleading guilty to sexual battery with a deadly weapon and avoiding trial on 7 rapes back in the 80s and 90s. He earned the nickname targeting women and girls in and near Orlando's Malibu Grove and Washington Shores neighborhoods. He was previously convicted in 6 rapes and was already serving life sentences for 2 of them. But Gail asked Orlando police to reopen her case and examine the evidence. And with the latest genetic science, they got a hit on Gertman in Gail's attack and that of 6 other women in 2021.
This plea represents a moment where justice has finally caught up but to a notorious predator.
Andrew Bain is the third state attorney to handle this case. Former state attorney Aramis Ayala has been Gail's legal advisor.
This woman is the real hero.
And emotional support through this ordeal.
I kind of closed the door in a sense, but I needed closure to the place where I was sure. I didn't have to worry about who's behind me or looking on my shoulder.
Because of her successful efforts in making sure Gertman remains locked up, Gardner's name is on Gail's Law. It established a tracking system that empowers sexual assault victims to track their evidence kits from law enforcement to crime labs to court, and guarantees quick results. Gertman will now be taken back to state prison, where he'll continue to receive medical treatment and live out his natural life. In Orlando, Greg Fox, WESH 2 News.